So what's going on YouTube? It's Car Sports, and I'm here with my friend The Hub. We're going to be doing a head-to-head mock draft, and later on we're going to be doing a video going over the picks that we'd like to see and the picks that we would not like to see for the Giants in the first round. That's going to be on his channel. I'll put the link down in the description. And let's get into it. We're going to be doing this based off what we think the teams are going to do, not what we would do. So with the first overall pick with the Arizona Cardinals, did you want to start or do you want me to start?
Nah, it's fine, man. You go ahead. I trust your judgment.
All right, so with the first pick, I'm looking Kyler Murray here. I honestly think that they're going to go Kyler Murray, but in this one, I'm going to go Nick Bosa.
Okay.
The reason for it is just because the last couple of days, it's sounding like they're not going to take Kyler. And it, from like what Josh Rosen has been saying recently, it makes me think that they're just gonna go best player available.
I was gonna bring that up. He's Josh Rosen, for a quarterback that might be losing his job very soon or just have a big shift in his life, is extremely calm, especially considering that he's just gonna enter his second year. And last year, one of the main concerns about him was just his maturity and not being able to handle high pressure situations.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing for me is that Rosen comes out and is able to handle it so well that in the past we've seen him not deal with situations so well when he's on the opposite side. So I think Nick Bosa is going to be the pick for the Cardinals. And so you're up with the Niners.
Okay, then. So the San Francisco 49ers, they with you taking Murray, obviously, I guess everybody knows if they've been on YouTube and whatnot, the consensus number 2 overall pick would have been Bosa. Now, this leaves me in a little bit of a situation because I can go Quinnen Williams here. He's considered the best, both defensive lineman and overall player in the draft. But they do have DeForest Buckner on the inside and then Solomon Thomas. I think it's like they basically have 2 really good inside guys. If they really need somebody on defense, it's going to be on the outside. So because of that, I'm going to go Josh Allen, the edge out of Kentucky.
Okay. I like the pick. I think Josh Allen is better suited as a 3-4 outside linebacker. But playing him as a 4-3 defensive end will get you a lot of production. I think he's going to be a monster in the NFL.
Surprisingly, I think if he does go to the 49ers, I think it would be D Ford that would be getting more production just because they'd probably be putting a lot more attention towards Allen. You know?
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
I think it'd be good for Josh Allen to learn a lot under D Ford. With the third pick, I have the New York Jets. I'm looking at Quinnen Williams. It's kind of intriguing. However, I don't think that the Jets are going to value that interior D-line as much. So with a little bit of a shocker, the first shocker in our mock draft here, I'm going to have the New York Jets going Rashawn Gary, the edge out of Michigan.
You know, some people actually consider Gary to be a little bit overrated. I'm not one of them, but some of them do. You got to say that.
I'm going to say, I don't think he's worth a top 5 pick. I think he's more that 6 to 15 range because of the production. He's lacking that production, but I mean, he is an athletic freak, and that's something that the Jets are going to need, and they need that edge rusher to be able to come in and produce for them. So, I mean, we're going 3 edge rushers right off the bat, but I mean, that's just this year's draft is just insanely stacked on the defensive
it's stacked
side.
Across the defense, honestly.
Yeah,
across the defense.
Across the defense is just stacked. So, I mean, you can't really go wrong.
I'm really kind of sad that Quinnen is dropping so much because I really do think he's a top 2 player in this draft.
Oh, I think Quinnen Williams is the best player in this draft.
You think he's the best?
Yeah,
I really can't decide between him and Bosa. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I think for me it goes Quinnen Williams, Nick Bosa, and Josh Allen, and I think those are the 3 guaranteed. No matter those 3 players aren't I can't see them doing bad. But.
All right. Now here though, you really, because the Raiders, everybody knows they need to replace Khalil Mack somehow, but then everybody also knows there's no chance of replacing a player like that because he's once in a generation.
Exactly. Yeah.
What I'm saying, it's like You could probably get, I don't know, a couple of people to make up the production that you lost, and it's the fear that you instilled on other teams that you lost. And they do need another edge, but I will go Quentin Williams here because you got like the number one talent on the board at number 4. I think it's too good for the Raiders to pass up.
Yeah. I like the pick. I think there's a possibility of what I'm hearing is that the Raiders are in love with Kyler, and that's something that I
Mhm.
think would be kind of interesting to see is how that would play out with Derek Carr. I can see Mike Mayock and John Gruden being in love with Kyler, but I think, like you said, Quentin Williams being there, he's a D lineman where he can rush the passer, and
Yeah.
doing that from the inside, we see how important that is with Aaron Donald and people like Fletcher Cox being able to get that production from the inside is key, and it can really change the game. And Quentin Williams I think, is the best player in this draft.
Yeah, most definitely. I get where you're coming from. The NFL, and just in terms of defense alone, has changed so much from the past couple of years. In terms of like edge rushers, they've moved from power to speed, and then in terms of just getting to the quarterback, it moved from like really outside to inside, as we've seen with Donald and Sue.
Yeah.
So yeah, Quinn Williams is that guy. Who you got for the Bucks?
All right. So for the Bucks, as much as it irks me to have to make this pick, it's what you're gonna see in every single mock draft, and it's what I truly believe. I think if Devin White's there, that the Buccaneers are gonna take him. So I'm gonna go Devin White. I wish he would fall to the Giants, but it's just something I don't think is gonna happen. I think the Bucks are gonna take him. The one thing I will say is I could see him slipping past the Bucks because last year everyone thought that the Bucks were gonna go Derwin James, and they traded back when both him and Minka were still on the board, I believe, right? And
Yeah.
so I mean, even though we know who the Bucks guys could be, they might trade back. But I think Devin White is their guy, and I think that's going to be the pick.
I hear you. Devin White is definitely one of the best linebackers in this class, and call me crazy, but I don't think he's better than Devin Bush. I know that's a very unpopular opinion, but I say it because I went back a couple days ago, I think, and I was like I was a guy extremely high on Devin White, but I was just looking back on some tape and like not just like highlights, like I was looking at some like full on games, and his tackling really needs improvement.
It
Like
does. Yeah.
if there's something I would say, the reason I would prefer Bush over White is because Bush has a higher floor, but then White
Yeah.
has the higher ceiling.
I'd,
You know,
I'd say
it's for like a
definitely.
team that would
Yeah.
probably be like they wants to win now. They'd probably go Bush because he's more NFL ready, in my opinion.
I think, yeah, definitely on what you're saying is Devin White and Devin Bush, athletically, I think they compare very similarly. I think
Yeah.
Devin White is a little bit stockier and has a little bit more size to him. And I think he doesn't have as much experience at the position. And that's probably why we're seeing Devin Bush being better, because Devin White was recruited as a running back, right?
Yeah.
And so he's only been playing linebacker for 2 or 3 years now, and I think he's got a lot of room to improve and a lot of room to be better compared to Devin Bush, who's more of a complete prospect as of right now.
I hear you. And what you just said reminds me of a we were speaking about the Michigan Devin Bush. You said how White converted and he has time to learn. Just for some reason, I mean, we're both Giants YouTuber. It reminds me of Jabril Peppers out of Michigan. He was recruited
Yeah,
as a linebacker and then got converted to safety. I
yeah,
really think he's going to do something great, but that's another topic for
yeah.
another
That's
day.
another topic for another day. All right, so
All right, so
you got our New
uh,
York Giants. What are you gonna do here?
um, okay, listen. Any Giants fans out there that want a QB, I'm sorry, I'm not going quarterback. You could go
Okay.
on both my friend Jay's here channel or my channel. You'll see that we both at some point say that hey, it's not necessary to take a quarterback. And it really, I would love to go in depth on it, but it's not that time, guys. I'm sorry. I really think we could have Eli for another year, and we picks. You should be excited. You should be excited that we're fixing the many holes on our defense, and then honestly, our offense, in my opinion, is good. We just need to fix the offensive line. So with that being said, I'm gonna go best overall player here, and in my opinion, the best overall player is Ed Oliver, defensive lineman out of Houston.
I
What do you
love
think
the
about
pick, man. I'm in the same boat, man. I'm looking at it, and I think Dwayne Haskins is there, and I think the value could be there. But I'm looking at Ed Oliver, and I have him probably as my my fourth ranked player. I'd put him right behind Josh Allen. I'd probably put him ahead of Devin White. I think if you're comparing Ed Oliver and Quinnen Williams, it's like taking Aaron Donald and Fletcher Cox. They're two of
Yeah.
the best interior linemen that I've seen come out of the draft in the last couple years, and I think people have it all wrong that the Giants need to draft a quarterback this year. I don't think we need to draft anything really. I mean, we have
Yeah.
holes and we need to fix pretty much almost everything on our roster, but to
Exactly.
say that we
We have
need to draft a
12
quarterback
picks.
at 6 is not necessary, and especially with the talent that you'd be having to pass up on, it just
It's
makes
not
sense
worth it.
for me. Yeah, I
It's
love
not
the
worth
pick
it.
with Ed Oliver at 6. I'd be ecstatic if that was our outcome.
Yeah, no, like people have been comparing Quentin Williams to Aaron Donald. I actually believe a better comparison would be Ed Oliver to Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I
And
think
he plays just like him, and he could be a perfect 3-4 defensive end. Can you imagine having B.J. Hill, Dalvin Thomas, and then Ed Oliver as those three guys in the front? That would
Yeah,
be amazing.
I think Ed Oliver compares more body type to Aaron Donald. I think just Quinnen Williams, his abilities and what he does on the field just represents Aaron
Yeah,
Donald a little bit more, because Ed Oliver, we see him rush the passer pretty well, but I think we see Quinnen Williams do it at a consistent basis.
yeah. All
So,
right. We both love the pick. Let's go on to Jacksonville.
all right, so Jacksonville, a lot of people I've seen have given them one of the Iowa tight ends. I think, to me, I don't see the tight ends going that high because I don't think the NFL values tight end that high to be
Yeah, I don't
worth of
even
a
think.
top 15 pick. I think later
Yeah,
rounds, because a couple years ago we saw O.J. Howard, Evan Ingram, and David Njoku receiving these like top 15 overall mocks, and it was just none of them went in. I think O.J. Howard went like 18 or 19. So I think the tight ends will probably slip a little bit. I want to give them a weapon for Nick Foles,
yeah.
and that's. But I also want to protect him. So right now I'm kind of debating between two players, and
Hmm.
I'm gonna go with DK Metcalf. I think he's just an athletic freak, and
Yeah.
giving Nick Foles that target and being able to surround him is something they need to do.
Listen, I can definitely see the need for it. I'm not a Jacksonville fan, all right? So maybe you could blame that on what I'm about to say, but can you really name any receiver on that Jaguars team that you could count on for 1,000 yard season?
Yeah, I
Like, can
think
you?
there's decent receivers, but none of them are gonna be that guy. None of them can consistently give you 1,000 yards, and
Yeah.
DK's a guy
Even
that
then,
has
I
an
don't even.
incredible upside.
Yeah, and even then, I don't think the collective of them. Sometimes you don't even need 1,000 yards. You just need a good group to get you a good
Yeah,
collective yards. I don't think that's that group. You
yeah,
know what I
I
mean?
don't. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
Oh,
I was debating on going Jawan Taylor and giving him that
yeah, I
protection,
was
but it
about to
was
say
just
I probably would go Taylor just because I don't know. I'd value tackle over weapon, but
yeah,
I still see where you're coming from.
yeah. All right,
All
who you
right,
got
so
going to the Lions?
now we got the Lions. Like you said, it was a shocking surprise that the Jets took Gary. I'm gonna say it right now. I was hoping Gary would drop to the Lions. He would be a perfect fit. And looking at their needs here, we got cornerback, tight end, edge. That's their top three. I'm gonna let the tight end sit just as you do because both the NFL and myself, I don't value them that high.
Yeah,
Yes, certain tight ends, like of course, I don't know. Say we had a Rob Gronkowski type, yeah, I'd scoop him up. But I'd let the tight end sit. Cornerback, believe it or not, I'm not as high on these cornerbacks as a lot of people are. I think they're more 15 to 32 picks than they are 1 to 15 picks.
yeah.
That's just my opinion. They
I
are
agree with
they're
that.
extremely good. They are elite. The main three and maybe even a fourth that I probably talk about later on. But because of that, I'm looking at edge, and I'd go Florida State
Okay.
to Detroit. And since you guys are probably going to be seeing the draft board here, you might be seeing Sweat ranked higher. In my opinion, Montez Sweat is grossly overrated. That's just me. I think he got most of his hype off the combine, but then you go look at his tape and his stats, and he really only has one move, and that's just speed. Brian Burns, in my opinion, is a lot more complete, and he also has a higher upside than Sweat does.
Yeah, I think Montez Sweat. I don't think he's overrated until you put him in that top 5 category, top 6. going to
Hmm.
the Giants and stuff like that. I think he's a good player. He's got a lot to work on though. He's a player who relies on his speed a lot.
Yeah,
And Brian Burns, like you said, is a more complete player, and I think Brian Burns is a great pick for the Lions right there. I think Montez Sweat might fit their scheme a little bit more just because of they had Ziggy Ansah who left this in free agency this last
hmm,
season, and
yeah,
Montez Sweat would be a good replacement for him. But I think Brian Burns is, like you said, the better player here.
yeah.
All right, so looking at the Bills, I think they need to build around Josh Allen. I think they're going to do that blueprint where you draft your quarterback and then the next offseason you just surround him with weapons. I remember watching a video about a month ago, and it was like 10 minutes straight of Bills receivers just dropping passes this year. And it
Yeah,
makes you feel so bad for Josh Allen because there's no one that he can throw to. However, with the number 9 overall pick and DK already gone, I don't see any weapon
any other
really.
receiver? Yeah,
I mean, I like Marquise Brown and AJ Brown, but I don't think at 9 that's really the pick. And like we both agree on, the tight ends aren't gonna be the selection at number 9. So with that, I'm gonna go protect your quarterback, and I'm gonna go Jawan Taylor.
absolutely agree with it. After DK, there's really listen, this wide receiver group and cornerback group actually, which is nice because they're like the opposites of each other. They're both really deep and deeper than I think people realize. There's a lot of people that might slide on the wide receiver side towards the bottom half of the first or even second. So I think yeah, the Bills could definitely find their person down there.
Yeah,
And also,
I
oh
think
yeah, go ahead.
I think the wide receiver especially class is so deep with the first about like 7 or 8 guys that you look at it and anybody could have a different wide receiver one,
Hmm.
or 1 to like 10, and I look at most people will probably have DK at 1, 2, or 3. I have him as my number 1 receiver just because the upside that he has, he can be that Julio Jones type guy. Besides that, like I look at AJ Brown's probably my next best receiver, and N'Keal Harry, Marquise
Yeah,
Brown, and then Hakeem Butler. And everybody's gonna have a different ranking for these receivers, but
yeah,
again, I don't see any of them being worth that number 9 pick outside of DK.
I hear you. Now we're at pick 10 with the Broncos, and looking back on it, people are gonna call us crazy because we have no quarterbacks gone. We have
Exactly.
the top 2 quarterbacks still on the board, and I found it funny because this is probably not gonna happen. But guys, if oh man, I would want this draft to happen this way just because of one, so the Giants could get the best player available, and two, I'd love to see a draft where the quarterbacks are not overvalued. And I'm not saying Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins are overvalued. It's just that if you were picking by talent, I think they'd probably go in this range right here. They'd
Yeah.
probably go 10 to 15 instead of like 1 to 5, 1 to 6.
Hmm.
And with that being said, it's for me, it's a no-brainer. The Broncos, listen, they got Flacco, but Flacco's not the answer for the future. I'm gonna go with Kyler Murray out of Oklahoma. You got the some people believe the best quarterback on the board, if not the second best quarterback on the board at 10. For me, yeah, just pick them up. You could work around them.
Yeah, I think Kyler on my board is the best quarterback. I like Dwayne Haskins. I like Drew Lock. It's just Kyler is. You watch his film and it's just amazing. It's jaw dropping if you watch him play, and
Hmm.
it's something that's gonna, I think personally, will translate over to the NFL. I am a little bit biased here because I am an Oklahoma fan, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would agree with me is when you watch Kyler play, it's amazing, and I
You know,
think
he definitely has something about him that football players have had in the past, and even
yeah.
now, it's just like that it factor. You can't explain what it is. He's already a great player. Everybody knows that, but there's something about him last year, and it's really funny because they were both Oklahoma quarterbacks that just kind of propels them even more than they already are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like you said, the Broncos do have Joe Flacco, but I don't think he's the long term solution. I think they have to kind of land that quarterback for the future and have Joe Flacco kind of be that mentor.
Yeah.
So I think Kyler's a great pick for the Broncos.
And even if he goes here, can you imagine what that team would be like? They already have a
Oh
top five
yeah,
defense, and
it'd
now they
be
have an
crazy.
actual quarterback. It's gonna be crazy.
hmm So looking at the Bengals, they've come out and said Andy Dalton's not their guy of the future, and that just to me, I'm looking at Dwayne Haskins sitting there at 11, and
Yeah.
I would take him if you're saying that Andy Dalton's not going to be the guy, you can have Dwayne Haskins sit behind Andy Dalton for a year, and then take over as that starter and be the guy for your future.
All right. No problem there. I was actually surprised they came out to say it. I'm like, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of surprising because he did, and you could argue it wasn't him. It could have been the team collectively. They did go to the playoffs. What was it, 4 or 5 years in a row? And then they just
Yeah,
sort of fell off after 2016 season for whatever reason. I blame it on coaching. I think they fired their former coach way too late.
yeah,
But I mean, I guess at some point you got to move on. Dawson, even when he was at his best, was probably didn't even scratch top 10 on quarterbacks. So
yeah.
I mean, I have no problem with them going Haskins here.
I mean, the way that I always looked at Andy Dalton was he was the parallel. Whenever I was comparing quarterbacks to him, I was using the Andy Dalton paradigm where he's right in the middle. You can't really tell if he's elite or if he's bad. He
Yeah.
doesn't play well enough to say, yeah, we want to keep him for the next 10 years, but he doesn't play bad enough for you to say that, yeah, we need to replace him immediately. I think they've
Mhm.
finally gotten over that and said, hey, like, you're not in that upper echelon of quarterbacks, and that's what everyone's trying to get to and trying to have. And I think they're just gonna move on from him, and it's finally time.
Yeah, I completely see it. Now with the Packers here, and I'm not a Packers fan. I don't know why I need to say that, but I just need to say that. And yeah, it's because ever since that 2016 game, and I would blame that on our receivers, but oh man, the Packers drove a knife in our hearts at that 2016 wild card game.
Yeah, that one
But
sucked.
that sucked so bad. All right, but okay, so the Packers are up, right? They
Yep.
improved their defense last year. Everybody knew last year with the draft, of course. Everybody knew that Aaron Rodgers, all he really needed was a good O line and a good defense to protect the lead he would give you. With that being said, it's kind of a hard pick because their top three needs here are safety, tight end, and offensive tackle.
Yeah.
I would consider tight end here. Mm, You got T.J. Hawkinson and Noah Fant still on there. Safety, I'm not. I'm actually not going to consider any safety. My best safety in this draft is Jonathan Abrams, and I think he's probably going to go either lower first or even second.
Yeah.
So I'm not really going to consider safety here. And then offensive tackle, you still got people like Andre Dillard and Jonah Williams, who are my next two best offensive tackles in the game here. So with that being said, I'm going to go with protect your quarterback. I'm going to go with Jonah Williams, offensive tackle out of Alabama. And that's mostly because I see this team going in a direction where it's going to be a lot more offensive focused with their hire of Zach Taylor, I believe it was.
Yep.
There's a lot of people around the league that and in the NFL media that say this guy is a genius and we just don't know it yet. He's going to do things with Packers. And I think if you're going to be an offensive minded team, both protect the QB and make some lanes for your running back.
Yeah, I think Jonah Williams is someone who is not necessarily, I'd say, slept on, but I think Jonah Williams is my number one rated tackle in this class, and it's just because you watch him play, and it's just he doesn't give you these big mauling plays like Jawan Taylor will, but he won't give up. And like all of his plays are so, the way that he plays with technique is so fine tuned that
Yeah.
it'll translate to the next level of the NFL. The thing that I like to compare it to is you always hear that technique is key in the NFL. Everybody's going to be big, strong, and everything like that, but if you can get your technique down, that's what's going to allow you to succeed in the NFL. And Jonah Williams is a guy who has almost flawless technique, and I think that's why he's my number one rated tackle, and I think that's a great thing for the Packers to get, especially with didn't T.J. Lang retire too this offseason, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah,
And not even that. Speaking on Joe Williams, you mentioned his technique. Looking at his tape, there's a lot of plays where he gets into the second level, and this is of course on running plays. This guy never
yeah,
gives up on a play, man,
he doesn't.
and he's always in there to block. And he doesn't have those big moment plays like you mentioned. But if I have a guy that could get up into the second level for my running back, that oh my god, I just love it. He's such a team player. I think
Yeah.
he's a great prospect.
All right, so I'm looking at the Dolphins here. It's reported that they're not gonna take a quarterback. Um, I see Drew Lock there, but I don't know if the value is really worth it.
Hmm.
Um,
Do you think it's smoke that they're not going to take a quarterback, or you think it's completely true?
I think it could be true. If they took a quarterback, I wouldn't be surprised.
Hmm.
Um, I I think what they'll probably end up doing is passing on a quarterback in the first round. Maybe getting someone like a Will Greer, Tyree Jackson, Ryan Finley, someone that they could just or that they could just take a shot on in a later round, see how he turns out, and if he doesn't turn out, then just take a quarterback next year. I think next year's quarterback is just way better. So
The overall class is a lot more deep too.
yeah, so I'm looking at it. Um, I know that they need a lot of help on their defense. Um, I I think I'm gonna go Montez Sweat here.
Montez Sweat.
Yeah.
Want to talk a little bit on Montez? We touched on him earlier, but
We touched on him
yeah,
earlier. He's a really good speed rusher, and I think he's got a really high ceiling if he can develop his moves a little bit better as a pass rusher. But the Dolphins just need someone to be able to set the edge. They lost Cameron Wake, I believe, and they
yeah.
haven't really had that guy on defense. Cameron Wake in the last couple of years hasn't been that great that I can remember.
He used to
And
be.
yeah, he used to be a monster, but the last couple of years just hasn't been all that. And I think their defense is really where they're gonna build because if we are going that route where they're gonna take a quarterback next year, I think they're gonna be building up their defense a lot. And Montez Sweat is just I think the highest ceiling of the edge rushers left, or
Yeah,
one of the highest.
I hear where you're coming from. I do hear where you're coming from. Dolphins defense, you can even go back a couple years, even back to when we got Vernon from them. They've just been consistently losing good and great players on their defense. I think they're gonna go
Yeah,
and try to build up again.
yeah,
So then now we're on to the Falcons. And Falcons, last year I think it was a really tragic story because the Falcons, honestly, I before the year began, I had them going like 9 or 10 wins. I still think they're a great team. It's just that
hmm
they were insanely injury ridden,
yeah. They
and then
got
also
hit
yeah, they got hit with the injury bug like the
yeah
Giants did in Game 5, I think, in 2017.
last in 2017. Yeah, we got hit with the injury bug, but the Falcons got hit pretty hard with the injury bug this year, and it's a
Yeah, no,
sad thing to see.
almost every player that you can name on their defense was out. It was crazy.
Yeah,
But then that goes to show you how they do need defensive depth, and that is their top three needs. Their inside D line, edge, and cornerback. That they are looking for what I think would be defensive depth, and also somebody to just get that defense jump started. Sometimes rookie players can do a lot for a team. They just have that energy
yeah,
that veteran player may not have anymore. And so then, like I said, I think they're a great team. Their offensive line is relatively good. I think it's one of the better ones in the league. I'm gonna go with Christian Wilkins,
okay.
inside defense coming out of Clemson here. Uh, Wilkins, him and I'm blanking on the other Clemson D lineman guys. I'm sorry.
Cleveland Farrell and Austin Bryant
Um,
and what's the last one?
yeah, it's literally the
I'm
last
blanking on
one.
it.
They
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Dexter Lawrence. Dexter Lawrence, of
Dexter
course.
Lawrence. Yeah, sorry about that, guys, but yeah, no, that yeah. First of all, that entire Clemson it's amazing players that could be potential starters and even more in the NFL. That was, in my opinion, the best defensive line in college football last year. But yeah, you could
Yeah,
really go any one of those guys here. And I think Wilkins is it's between him and Lawrence for me, who's the best of that four. I'd go Wilkins there just because I think he's a better fit for the Falcons.
yeah. I think the Falcons have some good edge rushers, and I think they're missing that interior D lineman, and I think that'll be a good step to completing their defense. And like you said, they need
Mhm.
a lot of depth on the defense, and I think Christian Wilkins is arguably the best Clemson lineman to come out. I think after
Yeah, no,
Ed
it's really you
Oliver,
could go either way, man. They're so
um,
good, you could go either way.
yeah, I think Cleveland Farrell is probably the best one, but I think
Hmm.
Christian Wilkins is a close second. I think after Quinnen Williams and Ed Oliver being that 1A, 1B in terms of interior D lineman, I think Christian Wilkins is the consensus number two overall
Yeah.
defensive interior defensive player.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Now on to another team that got hit by the injury bug in a different way, though.
So
What do you
I'm
think
looking
about the
at
Redskins?
I'm looking at the Redskins. This is where, like, you're looking at your trades for Josh Rosen. You're looking at the Redskins and the Giants kind of being the two leaders. However, in this
Yeah,
case, we don't have the Cardinals taking Kyler Murray. I
yeah.
think they have Alex Smith, but he's obviously not playing this year. And that could lead into them taking a quarterback. I'm kind of looking at Drew Lock here.
Mm-hmm.
They signed our guy, Landon Collins,
Which was kind of sad, but
which was
also
sad to see.
it,
Um,
it it was sad to see him go. But if he was really demanding that much money, and there was rumors saying he'd sit out if he got franchise tag, then I'm weirdly happy at the same time.
yeah,
It was so paradoxical. It was
yeah.
crazy.
I'm looking at their needs, and I'm looking at wide receiver and interior O line. I don't think necessarily they're gonna go interior O line right here because again, like the tight ends, I don't think interior O line is so heavily valued, and I like some of the interior linemen. I think it's a pretty deep class. I just don't
Yeah.
think there's any of those guys at this point that would push me over. With this pick, though, I am looking at receiver. I think they need that help. I think they're going to pass on a quarterback, and I'm going to take Marquise Brown.
Marquise Brown.
Yeah, I think Marquise Brown is probably the best playmaking receiver coming out of the draft this year. He's got a nickname, Hollywood. They say
Yeah.
it's because where he's from, but I think it more represents of how he plays. He's a big-time player. He's going to give you a lot of special plays, and I think that's something the Redskins are going to like.
Is Marquise Brown your number two receiver in this class, or did you put him there because?
I put him there more as a fit because I think as we saw the year progress, I think we saw Josh Doxson kind of come up as a better what they wanted him to be a couple years
Yeah.
ago when they drafted him, and being that possession type receiver, and so they need that playmaker on the outside as well. And I think AJ Brown is my second wide receiver. Marquise
Mm-hmm.
Brown's probably my third. But like I said, every team's going to have a different order for these receivers, and I think Marquise Brown will fit the Redskins a little bit better.
I hear you. I hear you. So now we're on to the Panthers, and the Panthers are a weird team for me because they had an up and down year. They began it and it looked as if AP season. Then it was that weird thing where was he injured? Was he injured? And then the team sort of fell apart. Uh, you could consider 19 because they have a good squad, but there's still some big holes on there. I think one of their biggest holes would be edge. And for that reason, it's a no-brainer for me to go Clelin Ferrell here. He's the
Yeah.
best remaining edge, in my opinion, on the board right now. Like you said, out of Clemson, you have him as your best defensive player on Clemson. Like I said, it could go either way for me. In my opinion, Clelin Ferrell is like probably the third or fourth best off the edge in this class. He has a great first step. He's a great man. He could just get to the quarterback.
Yeah, I think Cleveland Farrell. I would rank him above Montez Sweat. I would probably put him ahead of Brian Burns and Rashawn Gary. I'd put him as my third ranked edge rusher. I don't know if other teams are going to see him that way. I think he's got great potential, and like you said, he's got one of the best first steps in being able to get off the line of scrimmage right when the ball is snapped. I think he's going to be phenomenal. Again, I wish he falls to the Giants here, but I'm not going to argue if he gets picked there because, I mean, things are going to happen.
Yeah.
I like the pick, man.
I mean, like, I think one of the main reasons teams, or we don't know, maybe teams do see him as that second or third best. But I think one of the main reasons just I don't know, in our world, is he's not seen that way is because of, when you're playing with other great players like that, there's always questions about whether or not you're great because of them or you're great because of yourself. I
Yeah,
personally believe great because of himself, but I can see where other people would be coming from.
yeah, exactly. So now I have our New
Yeah.
York Giants at 17, which is exciting. I was gonna take Clelin Ferrell, but we just went. I'm looking kind of at Devin Bush. I like the pick, but someone that I love and that I think would be a great pick is I'm gonna go Cody Ford. I think he can slide right into
Alex.
our right tackle spot. He can, if we need him to, he can play any of our guard positions, and eventually he's that type of player that I can see taking over as our left tackle and us eventually getting another right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the immediate help at right tackle is where he'll start, and he'll be able to do a lot of good for us and solidify that offensive line.
I love it. I love it because with these two picks, we essentially talked and we got players to assign to our two biggest holes. Yes, Ed Oliver is not an edge rusher, but he is a pass rusher, and that's what we
Yeah.
need, pass rushers. And then we got that right tackle. I even think a little bit more highly of Cody Ford. I think he could slide in immediately to left tackle and move Nate Solder. But that, I don't know if Solder would play well on the right. It's just there would probably be a bunch of things, but that's how highly I think of him. I think he's a really great tackle. That's I do think he's being slept on in this draft.
Yeah. I rank him right behind Jonah Williams. I go Jonah Williams, Cody Ford, Jawan Taylor, as my top tackles in the league. I think the first 5 or 6 tackles are just amazing, and I'd be happy with either one of them. I think all of them are first round talents. But looking at them, I see Cody Ford there at 17. There's no way I can see the Giants passing him. I don't think for anyone there. Maybe if Jonah Williams was still there, but we have him going at 12 to the Packers. So I'm looking at who we have left and Cody Ford there. I don't think even Drew Lock's value could overtake Cody Ford at 17.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And even if it did, I don't think Drew Lock is worth the first round pick. Just me.
Yeah.
But so we got the Vikings here, and honestly, the Vikings might not go this route because they've needed to go this route for a long time. Their offensive line haven't. Listen, I don't want to call it a dumpster fire because it's not, but it's been bad for a couple years now, and they've really done not that much to address it.
Yeah.
So, listen. I hope they do this for the sake of the Vikings. I'm going Andre Dillard, offensive tackle out of Washington State. And like you said, these top 5 tackles on the draft here, I'd be happy with either one of them, but I'd rank him right behind Cody Ford. I think he's the next best tackle up. I think they need to fix that offensive line.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have them going interior, but I think their tackle spot is going to be a lot more important to fix. Like you said, their defensive line or offensive line has been pretty bad for the last couple of years. I think the only offensive line that I can think of in the last couple of years that's been consistently as bad as the Vikings is probably ours. However, we've been doing that to process of rebuilding it, and they haven't really done too much to address that. And I think that's something that they're going to have to start sometime, and now is a good time to do it with as deep of a class that we have this year.
Yeah.
All right, so going to the Tennessee Titans, I'm not seeing any, I'm looking at their needs, and edge rusher is something that's kind of important to them. However, I'm not seeing anyone really here worth the value of 19. Plus,
Yeah.
they did trade up last year, didn't they? Or they got Harold Landry, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he can develop this year. So I'm not going to go edge. I'm looking at the interior of the O-line, and I think I'm going to go Garrett Bradbury. It is a need for them, number one, and number two, I think their guards are what lacks on their offensive line. They have 2 really solid tackles, but their guards and center play is just not that great. And I think Garrett Bradbury is a guy who can come in any spot in that interior. He can step into guards or play center and be a starter at any of those positions.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I love that you mentioned that last point. Bradbury is known across the draft board as not somebody that just plays guard. He can play center. He could play position you put him at, and I believe he'll be a starter at any interior position you put him at.
Yeah.
What do I think he should go? I'd probably put him at left guard, just because in terms of, I don't know, if you'd rank the importance of offensive linemen, I think left guard would come after the tackles. So I'd definitely put him at left guard. But like I said, anywhere there, I agree with the pick wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
So now on to the Steelers, and my, have the Steelers been a drama show for how many years? And then this was like a season finale this past season. So they lost their best receiver. I mean, you could say Juju was already better than Brown, but I would give Antonio Brown the respect on the field. Off the field, this is another issue, but on the field, he was definitely a top 3 receiver. They lost their best weapon there. They lost Le'Veon Bell, or maybe I guess you could say they let go of him because they didn't really even try to get him. And so now they're the linebacker, cornerback, and edge. But here, as much as I'm really swayed here, just because as we've raved about how good of a defensive draft this is, I'm gonna go linebacker. I mean, my bad, my bad. I said linebacker. I'm gonna go wide receiver. I'm gonna go N'Keal Harry out of Arizona State. I think he's the best available wide receiver, and I think they'd not he's not really gonna be that number one. I think he's gonna be a good number two though, because I have a feeling the Steelers team and more so the Steelers offense are gonna come out with a vengeance and try to show everybody, hey, we're just as good, if not better, without two players that we lost. I think Big Ben is gonna be looking to shoot it at with hands on the field so that he could just get these yards, get these touchdowns.
Yeah, I think N'Keal Harry is a great player. I don't necessarily agree with this pick though. I think the Steelers are gonna go more of a defensive player, but
Mm-hmm.
I like I said, N'Keal Harry is a great player. I think he'd slide in. He'd have a lot of competition with James Washington because I do expect James Washington to kind of step up and assume that number two position.
Yeah.
But N'Keal Harry is a great player, and adding him to that roster and having those three receivers with Juju, James Washington, and N'Keal Harry that's pretty scary, and I think that's something that would be a good step for them. However, if it was my pick, I'd probably go on the defense.
I hear you. I hear you.
Yeah. All right. So with these Seahawks, um, the Legion of Boom is gone, man. And just based off that alone, I'm gonna go Byron Murphy. I think they need help at corner. And in the secondary, they lost Earl Thomas. I don't see the safeties. I see the safeties more as a late round, first round pick to second round for all of them. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's a very deep safety class, and for that reason, they're not going to be valued as high.
Yeah.
And I think Byron Murphy is just my number one corner, and I think the Seahawks will use him to kind of reamp and restart that new Legion of Boom.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, even the Legion Boom is gone. It's kind of sad because they had a very short run when you think about it. But then when way last year to have a relatively good defense. You know what? Yeah, they had a really good defense last year. It was a surprise, a pleasant one at that. I think Byron Murphy is a great pick to fill in that cornerback spot. And now for the Ravens, kind of on the flip side, the Ravens had, I think they were ranked number one defense last year,
Yeah, I
if
think
I'm
they
not
were.
mistaken. But then they lost a good amount of players, or at least players of great value to them within the offseason. They, most notably, like DJ Mosley.
Yeah.
And so I think they're gonna try and maintain that defense because that's been their identity for like almost 20 years now. Just strong, good defense and good quarterback play. So with that being said, I'm gonna go the best available linebacker on here. And some people would be like, I'm surprised he lasted this long, but I'm gonna go with Devin Bush out of Michigan linebacker. I think he could come in and be an immediate starter and help that defense maintain its position as number one.
Yeah, I think just like you said, I think with the loss of C.J. Mosley, there's a big gap at linebacker, and I think Devin Bush, we could have had him going a lot higher to a lot of different people. I think the fact
Yeah,
he's there at 22 is a thing that the Ravens would jump for. I know a lot of people have them taking a receiver, but I
yeah.
think, like you said, they're known for their defense. They've built their team around having this great defense, and then with them letting go of C.J. Mosley, they got to replace him. And I think Devin Bush is a fantastic player, and I think at 22, that's almost a steal.
Yeah, almost, yeah.
All right, so with the Texans here, I think there's a lot of ways that I can go with this. I think a lineman would be very important here because I think Deshaun Watson has a great ceiling. He's just always having to run around, and he has to make plays by himself.
Yeah.
I think their defense could use a little bit of improvement. However, I'm gonna give Deshaun Watson another target here, and I'm gonna go T.J. Hawkinson. I'm gonna have our first tight end go off the board here. I think T.J. Hawkinson and Noah Fant, really, you're not gonna go wrong with either of them. I think they're both very complete tight ends, and I
Yeah.
think it's a good thing for Deshaun Watson to have a big, reliable target.
I can see where you're coming from, but I don't want to say I necessarily disagree because obviously I've seen his tape, but I've heard it was either an NFL scout or somebody on the NFL Network say that TJ Hawkinson is a right tackle that can catch because he blocks so well. So he does come in and help with that blocking. I mean, Deshaun Watson was sacked, what, 69 times last year, probably more than that. An
Yeah.
insanely high number, right? So, I mean, it's not like I necessarily disagree with the pick, but I probably would have went a OT offensive tackle or even an inside offensive lineman here. Like Dalton Reisner is still on the board. Uh, he's definitely the next up, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from for TJ.
Yeah, I think TJ's more of a hybrid, that lineman that can catch, like you said, and I
Yeah,
think that's why I'm sliding him into the Texan is because he gives Deshaun Watson that target, and he also helps in that passing game or in that run game where he needs to block, compared to Noah Fant where you're gonna have him more as I mean he can Noah Fant respectively can block as well, but I think T.J. Hawkinson is the better blocker, and for that reason, I'm
I hear
putting
you. I
him
hear
in the
you.
Texans.
All right, so the Raiders again. This is my second pick with the Raiders. So look, the Raiders. I probably didn't mention it before because I just said like there's no chance I see them giving up on Quinnen if he's there. So they kind of addressed a pass rush need. The Raiders are a very interesting team, not only because they have three first round picks, but because they have probably the crazy genius mastermind John Gruden at the helm. And so then I don't see them going edge here, mostly because I don't see anybody worth a 24th overall pick at edge. And also, like I said, they have sort of addressed the pass rush with Quinn Williams. So then I'm looking past that and I'm looking at their next need and his cornerback. And it's a no brainer for me. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to go with Greedy Williams out of LSU cornerback. He's definitely the most raw cornerback prospect out there. Some people have him as the best, and it's really interchangeable between him, Baker, and Murphy. But I think if he's on the board at 24 and it is a need for them, I can see them going there without a doubt.
Yeah, I think something we've seen in the last couple of years is that the Raiders secondary has been very poor, and they've made some attempts to fix it with Garyon Conley and Carl Joseph in the last couple of years. But I think Greedy Williams coming in and being able to step in across from Garyon Conley and play with them, I think he'll really give the Raiders a shot in the arm and be the first step, or not the first step, but um, the turnaround for that Raiders secondary and something that could be great.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, he's raw, so he does have a bit of his college mate Devin White. They do both have some league and just parts of their game that they need to develop, but they have very high ceilings.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the Eagles here. This one's a little bit of a rough one. I kind of want to go Josh Jacobs. However, I don't see the Eagles as much as they need a running back. I don't see them valuing a running back this highly. I think the running back class is deep, but again, it's one of those
Yeah.
ones where it's deeper later on. Um,
And also speaking on that real quick, I feel like people are undervaluing the talent of Jordan Howard, which
yeah,
they got from the
especially because
Bills.
they got Jordan Howard. I think that's a big player to. He's a good player. I think that they can wait till the later rounds to find that
Exactly.
complementary piece to Jordan Howard. So for that sake, I'm gonna go DeAndre Baker here. I'm
I
gonna
hear.
go. So the reason why I'm going DeAndre Baker here is because their secondary 2 years ago when they won the Super Bowl was pretty insane, and it was playing lockdown, lights out. And this past year, it was very off and on, and there was a lot of inconsistency with it. So I think DeAndre Baker can come in and provide a lot more consistency because he's that guy that we saw him in the last 2 years didn't let up a single touchdown, and that's something that's important that I'm looking at, and I'm watching him play, and he's not giving up any touchdowns, and it's a good thing to have as a corner.
Baker is actually who I think is the best corner in this class. So for him to drop to 25 and the team to pick him up, I think is a steal. And even if for those of you out there who don't think he's the best, like I said, it's really rotation between these three. Either way, he would be a steal. But what do you have to say to maybe the Eagles fans out there, or just fans in general who were looking at the board and saw that cornerback was the last need? What do you have to say to that?
I think we shouldn't necessarily go off this website's needs. I think personally, everyone's gonna have their own needs, right? Like Giants fans are gonna have quarterback be one of the top needs, but for us, it's not. I think personally, to me, the Eagles need a cornerback. I think Eagles fans should be happy with DeAndre Baker. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Looking at who's left on the board, there are some other people that you could say that you prefer more, but I think DeAndre Baker, like we both agree, is a steal at 25.
Yeah, yeah, no problem, no problem. So now we're up here with the Colts, and the Colts were a surprise last year, a pleasant win at that. I love the comeback story of Andrew Luck. I love that they basically got not necessarily two steals, but I do think Darius Leonard was a steal, but not so much as Quentin Nelson. But
Yeah.
they just got two really good players on both sides of the line within last year's draft, and you saw how to propel them. I feel excited for this team. I expected them to go farther than they did in the playoffs. So looking at that, I'm looking defense here again. Uh, so you got board on the defense. We got basically all the safeties left, who we both agreed they could go either late first or early second. We got Jerry Tillery out of Notre Dame. We got some more cornerbacks, and then Jeffrey Simmons and Dexter Lawrence. So it's kind of a hard decision for me. I'm really deciding between safety and defensive lineman, and I'm trying to think about who they got on that front seven. And they have really good players other than Darius Leonard, but I think they still need somebody on the inside. And for that reason, I am going to go Dexter Lawrence, the guy whose name I forgot earlier, a really good inside defensive lineman out of Clemson.
Yeah, I think when you look at Dexter Lawrence play, um, and pretty much all of the Clemson players in general, you make that case that he could be just a product of that teamwork and everything like that. But I think Dexter Lawrence and Cleveland Farrell um, and Christian Wilkins especially, when you watch the tape, it's not them just working as a team. It's them consistently doing their own job and getting what
Exactly.
needs to be done. And I think, like you said, the Colts do need that interior D lineman, and I think they have some players on the outside. They have some players set up as well on the offense, especially. I know that some people think that they could use a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them going receiver, and I think Dexter Lawrence is a great pick at 26.
Yeah, hear you. Now you got the Raiders, man. What you
Now I
doing
got
there?
the Raiders. So I'm looking at the Raiders. I think we did give them that shot in the arm for the secondary with Greedy Williams. However, I'm gonna go in the secondary again. However, I'm gonna go safety this time,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go Nasir Adderley out of Delaware. I think Carl Joseph is a good player, but has had some problems the last couple of years, and I think Nasir Adderley is a guy who similarly compares to Earl Thomas, that guy that you're gonna have as a rangy free safety. And I think that's something that the Raiders will need is a ball hawk. You need someone who's going to get these big plays and these interceptions, especially when you're making that move to Las Vegas. You need someone who's going to stand out on defense, and I think Nasir Adderley is going to be that guy.
Yeah, I hear you definitely. They definitely there, and to have a lockdown corner and then a secondary is a great thing to have, especially when you got Quentin Williams rushing the passer up the middle, or if they move him some. I mean, I wouldn't see them move him outside, but I just mentioned that because of his versatility. The
Yeah,
Raiders got a really good defense going.
yeah, I
So
think
then,
so.
yeah, go on.
I think the Raiders have, with them going defense in their first three picks, they have a really good defense set up for the future with Quentin Williams, with Greedy Williams, and Nasir Adderley. That's a scary combo.
Yeah. So now I got the Chargers here, and the Chargers is probably the hardest team, mostly because they are a relatively complete team. There's not that really many big holes on them. For a while now, they've been a complete team. They've been the complete team on defense, on offense, like everywhere. It's just that, I don't know, you could argue bad luck or maybe they're not clicking properly, but there's just nothing that stands out to me and that tells me, hey, you need to go for this position or anything. They've just complete is the word that comes to mind when I think of the Chargers, and bad luck, of course. But so for that reason, I'm gonna try and go depth here, and in my opinion, there's no such thing as not too much offensive lineman. So I'm gonna go Eric McCoy inside offensive linemen out of Texas A&M. Like I said, there's no such thing as too much of them, and I mean, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I don't know where else I'd go here if it's gonna be a depth pick. Like I said, there's nothing that stands out to me.
Yeah, I mean, my best friend is a Chargers fan. I know he
Hmm.
probably wouldn't like this pick so much, but I do like it. I think the last couple years, I know they got Dan Feeney and Forrest Lamp as their guards. However,
Yeah,
they also have I mean, Mike or Marquise Pouncey as their center. But I think, like you said, there's not too many spots on their roster where you look and say, oh, they need to upgrade that spot. And I think Eric McCoy is a guy who can come in, who possibly could even start at tackle in some situations that if need be. And I think he's a very versatile offensive lineman that the Chargers will be happy to take. The player that I probably would have slot into them is someone like Jerry Tillery or Jeffrey Simmons, just on that D line. Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I think the offensive line and that depth is a great thing for them to have.
And I can even see why you go either Jerry Tillery or Jeffrey Simmons because there are another couple players who I think not necessarily being slept on, but I think are definitely potential first going into second. They
Yeah,
they they have a lot of talent and see any team going with them in this latter half of the first round.
yeah. So with the Kansas City Chiefs, this one to me is pretty obvious. I know their defense has been kind of a train wreck the last year. However, I think they need to prepare for life without Tyreek Hill. And for that
Yeah.
reason alone, I'm going to go A.J. Brown. Like I said, A.J. Brown's probably my number 2 receiver on the board. I think he's the best route runner, the most complete wide receiver in this year's draft. I think DK just has a better upside. That's why I put him above him. But I think without Tyreek Hill, with the possibility of not having Tyreek Hill, you're going to need someone else besides just Travis Kelce, and I think A.J. Brown would be the pick for them. I think defense is also a possibility, but A.J. Brown sitting there at 29, I'd take him.
I agree with you. You got to think about they've already cut Kareem Hunt. You could probably even gone running back here, and you could argue Damian Williams is good enough. I mean, I'd probably want to see another year out of him before I say, oh, he's a solution for the future. I see where you're coming from, and I was actually thinking along similar lines, but with Eric Berry, maybe they do that in the
Yeah,
second round. I was thinking though they need to think about life after Eric Berry. You're not the same player he was, say, 2, 3 years ago, where he was probably renowned the best or the second best safety within the league. But I think the injuries have caught up with him. He's due for a come. I think they also need to be thinking about life without Eric Berry.
yeah. I was looking at some of the safeties. However, I know that they signed Tyrann Mathieu, and looking at how the other safeties would kind of compare with them, I don't see them working too well. Looking at Jonathan Abram, he's more of a box safety to me, and Tyrann Mathieu is kind of that he can play free safety, but he's kind of better suited to float around. And
Mhm.
Chancey Gardner Johnston is a guy who's kind of like a direct, who I would compare to like Tyrann Mathieu, where he's very versatile. Taylor Rapp at the same thing. Darnell Savage, Juan Thornhill. I just don't see them
Yeah, and even
valuing. I think
even
there's
Pat Taylor Rabb, wouldn't think that any of them are first rounders either way. So I could see where
yeah.
you're coming from.
I think the value of them is that second rounder, and I think that's where they go to address the Eric Berry release.
So yeah, now we're at the Packers, and this is a team I do think that could definitely continue to address their defense. We've already went offensive tackle with Williams is who I went with. And so here I think like I said, with Aaron Rodgers, what you need is a good defense and some good protection. We got him the protection. Now we're gonna go for defense. And I'm actually trying to scroll down. There he is right there. I'm gonna go with Jerry Tillery, inside D lineman out of Notre Dame. And I'm not gonna front on you here. I kinda didn't go with him earlier just because I wanted him to slide to the Packers a little bit. I think he could be a great fit for them and he could slide in right there.
Yeah, I think he's a great fit for the Packers because we saw them this offseason address their defense and know that they have that need by signing the two Smiths, Preston Smith and Zadarius Smith. So they have their
Mhm.
edge rushers. They have a very young secondary that I think has a lot of talent, and they just need to solidify the linebacker position. But I don't think there's any linebackers in this range. But Jerry Tillery and even Jeffrey Simmons are two guys that I see in this range that would be phenomenal players. and that would
Hmm.
be great for the Packers.
I hear you.
All right, so I'm up with the Rams. That means so the Rams is a hard one because like the Chargers, I feel like they're a very complete team. I don't know if they really need too many players. However, there is one thing that kind of worries me. We heard about the reports of Todd Gurley walking around with a limp and that he has arthritis in his knee. That makes
Yeah,
me want to at least
I've actually
not
seen a
say that they're
video of him
gonna
walking out with
not
him.
say that they're gonna move on from him, but I'm gonna take
Yeah,
Josh Jacobs, just someone who can come in and at least give Todd Gurley a lot of rest and not have to use him as often as possible. I create a heavy rotation between the two. It's something that I think is important if you want to keep Todd Gurley at the level that he's playing. Arthritis isn't something that you can kind of just brush off and get over in just a couple months before the season comes. It's something that's going to stick with you for a long time. And so if those
yeah,
reports are true, I think they need to have a running back that they can at least rotate in with him because he could come back and not be the same player that he was, and you need to prepare for that.
yeah. I hear you. Todd Gurley, he's definitely best running backs in the league, if not the best. Personally, I have Saquon above him, but we're not gonna talk about that right
A
now.
little bit of
Uh,
bias.
little, just a tiny bit of bias, but no. On a serious note, it's very sad what happened to Gurley. He was, you could argue, on the path of an MVP season. In the first half of the season, he was destroying everything that moved on the field, man, through the run and through the air. Todd Gurley, the reports that coming out, and like I said, I saw a video of him actually limping, and I was very surprised. I don't mind him getting somebody to help establish that 1-2 punch just to take the load off of him because I want him to last in the league. I love running backs; they're my favorite position, but it's sad because they have the shortest life of any other position in the league. So I
Yeah.
want him to last. He's a great talent.
Yeah, yeah. Just like what you said, I want him to succeed, but you gotta have that rotation with him because you don't want him to have to wear down, especially with the limp and everything. You don't want to see that be a continuous problem. And if he's your number one running back and there's no one really behind him, you don't have the option to be able to take him out. And Josh Jacob gives him that option to give him some rest.
Yeah. And now I'm stuck with the evil empire, the defending Super Bowl champions, the New England Patriots. And the Patriots, nobody really knows where they're gonna go this draft, which is not a surprise because nobody knows where they're gonna go any draft.
Yeah,
It's very much so. I mean, we're not doing it here, but it's very much possible. I can see Belichick trading 12 picks like the Giants, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken, and I can see him trading down just to get more. But just looking here, I'm gonna go with somebody that people have ranked higher than number 32. I'm gonna go with Noah Fant, tight end out of Iowa, because because of the really abrupt. I mean, I some people say they saw it coming, but I definitely did not see Rob Gronkowski retiring. In
yeah.
my opinion, one of the best tight ends to ever play the game. And this is not a pick to replace Gronkowski. This is a pick to give Brady something he's comfortable with. He's been comfortable with throwing to just that tight end position, whether it's Gronk or not, throughout the past 10, maybe even more than 10 years. So I know Fant, similar to Hawkinson, he could block also, help block there for Michelle and all that. I think he's just a great. But like I said, I have no idea where they're gonna go, man.
Yeah, I've no idea. I've been all through all my mock drafts. The Patriots pick is probably one of the hardest ones. I want to say that they're gonna go tight end, but I can't guarantee that. It's just not something that Bill Belichick I think will do. I think
Mhm.
usually what the Patriots are so good at and why they've been so good for so long is that they're really good at finding replacements before the people leave. And with
Yeah,
Gronk kind of all of a sudden retiring, it's going to be hard to replace him.
yeah.
But however, like how we kind of had the tight end slide, I don't think tight end is as crucial as a role. But
Hmm.
for the Patriots system, it kind of is. And I can see them going Noah Fant right there
Yeah, I could
for
even.
sure.
I mean, I can even see them going edge or something. They did lose their best edge rusher this offseason.
Yeah,
But then at the same time, it's like, who is worth that 32nd overall pick that's still on the board? I mean, next best edge rusher was probably Winovich, but is he worth a 32nd overall? Maybe he is to the Patriots. Yeah, I don't know, man. I can see what you're saying with the tight end sliding because there's a lot of good tight ends left on the board. So yeah.
yeah. And so that's going to round out our mock draft. Let's quickly go over it real quick. So number 1, we have Nick Bosa going to the Cardinals. Number 2, we have Josh Allen going to the 49ers. Rashawn Gary at number 3 to the Jets. The Raiders take Quinnen Williams at 4. Devin White to the Bucks at 5. 6, we have the New York Giants going best player available and going Ed Oliver. 7, we have DK Metcalf to the Jaguars. Brian Burns at 8 to the Detroit Lions. Jawan Taylor to the Buffalo Bills at 9. Kyler Murray to the Denver Broncos at 10. The Bengals take Dwayne Haskins at 11. At 12, Jonah Williams to the Packers. Montez Sweat at 13 to the Dolphins. The Falcons take Christian Wilkins at 14. 15, Marquise Brown to the Redskins. 16, the Panthers take Cleveland Farrell. Then at 17, I had the Giants going Cody Ford. And then 18, Andre Dillard to the Vikings. Garrett Bradbury to Tennessee at 19. N'Keal Harry to the Steelers at 20. 21, the Seahawks take Byron Murphy. The Ravens at 22 take Devin Bush. The Texans take TJ Hawkinson at 23. Greedy Williams slides to the Raiders at 24. DeAndre Baker to the Eagles at 25. At 26, Dexter Lawrence to the Colts. Raiders again at 27 take Nasir Adderley. Chargers take Eric McCoy at 28. 29, the Chiefs take A.J. Brown. 30, the Packers take Jerry Tillery. And then at 31, we have Josh Jacobs to the Rams. And 32, Noah Fant to the Patriots. I think there's a lot of really good players still left on the board and that I'd be excited for day 2. I think, like we said, this is one of the deepest drafts of all the drafts that I've ever seen. And I think it just makes me so excited that we have 2 first-round picks and a high second-round pick. And I fully expect the Giants to trade up into the second or third round again. And
Oh yeah, most definitely. We have so many picks on base 3 that is like I would want them to trade up to second or third.
especially because there's so many good players. I think no matter like how our first 2 picks go, we can trade back up in that round and get whatever position of need we need. Even if we say we go quarterback at number 6 and then lineman at number 17, we can at 37 we can go edge rusher and be perfectly fine. There's just so many good players in this draft that I'm really excited.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like Dave Gettleman said it best, man. This is one of the deepest drafts he's ever seen in his lifetime. This is definitely, for my short lifetime, the deepest draft I've ever seen. The
Yeah.
one with ways you can look at that, guys, the viewers out there, look at every team that selected a defensive player, and every single team that selected a defensive player just got better. There's no bad defensive player selected here. Every team just got better on their defense. Just like, if you look at it, I mean, that just says something to you about how great. Completely excited for Thursday.
Yeah, I think a lot of these players, there's a lot of low risk talent, especially on defense, and I'm just excited. So that being said, if you liked the video, go ahead and leave a like, comment, leave a subscribe. We want to know what you guys think. Love to hear that, and look out on the Hub's channel. I'll leave the link in the description. Check there shortly. We'll have a video for you guys on there. Thank you.
Yeah, before we go, I just like to say thank you so much to the man Jay Carr for letting me come on here. I discovered his channel quite randomly, actually. I was just scrolling through. As you guys can tell, we're both relatively new channels, and I saw his very first video. I saw good length on it. I saw great in-depth analysis, and I saw somebody that's passionate about this sport, and that's somebody I'd love to watch. I just want to thank you so much for letting me on your channel, man. It's been an
no
honor.
problem. Thank you for that. I love your channel too, so like I said, go check his channel out. It's great, and have a good day.